Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Much appreciated. And I know that you're all around campus, probably on your phones or in different nooks and crannies around campus. And so, thank you for taking the time out. We're really excited. I am very excited to have our very own Ben Rose, who is quite an expert in audio and technology, all things audio and technology. And so, particularly the audio and I want to introduce Ben and say that Ben is a Bachelor of Music Education student who has been at Western for a bit now, and he's very involved in all kinds of activities around campus. And we are living in an age, as you all know, in this pandemic where we're 100% reliant upon technology. And just coincidentally, he's pretty good at this. So, Ben Rose, thank you so much for coming, and we'll figuratively give you an applause. Yay, yay, yay. So Ben, why don't you go ahead and just give us your presentation, and I'll change the view to a speaker view so people can see you. And Brian Merriman is clapping. That's great. Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. So thank you, Dr. Sapola. And like Dr. Sapola said, yes, I do a lot with audio technology. I work part-time for Living Hope Baptist Church, and that's exactly what I do. I work with audio and video technology almost every day of the week, and I like to think that I'm okay at it. So hopefully there's some good stuff here we can talk about and learn about, and there'll be time for questions later if anybody has any. So the first thing is, I think for the most part, what I'll be talking about today is the importance of personal audio equipment and then like what kind of options there are for you in that field. And so, the first question is like, well, why do we even need personal audio equipment? And so maybe y'all can click the little, I think there's, what are the reactions we have here? So there's the little thumbs up reaction. So you all can give me that. How many of you all have been on a phone call and thought to yourself, wow, I can't hear anything. This phone call audio is terrible. Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing thumbs up everywhere. I get it every single time. I have to put my cell phone on speakerphone in order to understand somebody when I talk to them. It's kind of crazy. But the reason that that's the case is because the microphones inside of our smartphones, and I can even show you here on mine, the microphones are tucked away in these little tiny holes at the bottoms of our phones. And so sometimes they're the size of like the tip of a ballpoint pen, or maybe the size of a small peanut or something. They're tiny little microphones. And so obviously the audio quality we get from those is very poor. And so given that that's the case, it seems kind of ridiculous for us to be producing these recordings for our classes or recordings for presentations, or even just like what we're doing now in a video conference. To use those small microphones is something that's almost impossible just because of the low quality of the audio of those devices. So what I want to present to you today is just how important it is to own some sort of personal audio equipment that is of a higher quality than the built-in microphones we all experience on a nearly daily basis. So the first thing I want to say is, presumably all of us here are music students, right? I imagine there's a mix of people who are education and performance and bachelors of arts, and that's great. But the thing is, as music students, what's the number one way outside of live performance that we share our music? It's through recordings, right? And so, Dr. Sapola, I know you require us to make recordings frequently and submit them to you either on YouTube or an audio link. We're constantly doing that. When we do auditions, particularly now that we're in this pandemic stage, we're always submitting audition recordings. And, it's beneficial if those recordings sound nice, right? And then even outside of the music department, we think about these classes that require online presentations, or us to make little short video projects and submit them that require voiceover or audio recordings. And then that's just for submitted work. I can't speak for you guys, but I know I'm in Zoom calls all the time nowadays. And you can tell when somebody's Zoom audio is really bad, and it's almost hard to listen to. I tell people it sounds like they're talking through a plastic bag full of glass shards. And we all experience this stuff. And so because we're all in this together, and because we all want to present ourselves in a high quality way, I make a case for owning some personal audio equipment. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. That's my brief 5-minute introduction. And so the first thing I want to say is the stuff I'm going to show you is at all sorts of different price points. So I know a lot of people are concerned about the cost of this stuff. We know you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on professional audio equipment. I know Dr. Sapola, you use some very, very nice equipment for your recordings and for your lessons and stuff. And we can go to the moon with this stuff, or we can choose more reasonable equipment that's still going to provide really nice, high quality at an affordable price, which hopefully you all will see here in a second, because I know we're all in the same boat. I'm sure people spent insane amounts of money on textbooks. We're all buying reeds and new mouthpieces and ligatures left and right. And I know the last thing somebody wants to think about buying is a microphone or something, right? So the good news is I've got a couple different options I can present you with. And I'm sure at some point, if you want to get in touch with me or during the Q&A, I can make more specific recommendations for you personally that might be at a better price point or more applicable to what you need, if that sounds good. So before we get into what I use, I want to just briefly open the floor up for anybody who has any quick questions just about what we're going to be talking about. And then I'll get into more of the technical part of the discussion. So if anybody has any quick questions, I'll give you a couple minutes for that.
Ben, I would jump in then. I guess if I were a student, number one, coming to college for the first time, or a current student, this is a big change. This would be a big change for me, being a music person, and what got me into all this was band, and that's where I started playing my instrument. I'm talking like a student would be. So I'm still not convinced that I need to buy a microphone when I don't even have a good saxophone yet. I'm kind of joking when I say this. So maybe you could make some more argument, or just a little more of a case for why quality is important. Does it make a difference in an audition? Does it make a difference in a lesson? Does it make a difference in your communications presentations for your other courses?
Sure. I mean, that's an excellent point. I've presented a couple of reasons why I think audio quality is important, but that's an excellent point, Dr. Sapola. So think about your lessons. When I work with Dr. Sapola in a saxophone lesson, we're working remotely, we're working over Zoom. And so the audio that he is hearing from me and my playing is going to be, converted to a digital format, transferred over the internet, and then downloaded onto Dr. Sapola's computer. So he's hearing this across the internet. And that's fine, that works great. We have the wonderful services like CleanFeed that help make that happen. But if Dr. Sapola really wants to be able to help me, and if I want him to help me as a student, then I really need him to hear what I actually sound like. And so tearing down barriers between what I actually sound like and what he hears is going to be critical for that. So if we take down, let's say there's 3 walls here, and maybe one of those walls is the microphone I'm using doesn't do a good job picking up my tone, for instance. Let's say my tone is sounding really, really bright, but Dr. Sapola can't hear that because the microphone in my cell phone is really, really dark. It doesn't pick up that brightness. And so when he hears me playing in a lesson, what he might say to me is, wow, Ben, your tone has improved so much. But then the next time I see him in person and he actually hears me play, it's like, oh my goodness, Ben, no, your tone, it's so, so bright. It hurts my ears when I listen to it. You need to work on that. And so, maybe that's one wall. And then maybe another wall is just articulations. And so, for instance, a staccato note or an accented note, we want to be able to hear the quick dynamic changes of those, or the abruptness of a staccato or the separation. And a microphone that's really low quality isn't going to be able to pick that up because the amount of volume it can accept is low. And so a professional microphone can accept more sound at one time, whereas a cell phone microphone can only accept like maybe this much sound at a time. Sorry, I'm holding this cable. I don't need to be. So like a professional mic can handle this much sound and a cell phone can only handle this much. So whenever the sound is louder than what the microphone can handle, it just flattens out. And so then we can't hear those dynamics. We can't hear those articulations. And so it makes it more difficult for Dr. Sapola to help me or whoever the student is in that lesson because the microphone is such low quality. Or for instance, you think about an audition. You know, we all had to do, well, all of us in the winds department had to do recorded auditions for symphonic band and symphonic winds this semester. And that's great. You know, that's a way people are doing it nowadays. Even master's programs at other universities are requiring recorded auditions. And you know, that's just a reality of the world we live in today. Recorded auditions are a thing that is here to stay. But given that that's the case, we want to present ourselves in a good light. So all these things we just talked about with a lesson with Dr. Sapola also hold true for a audition. If you're using a cell phone to record your audition for a really nice master's program at a university or for a prestigious ensemble here at Western, and your microphone can't hear the dynamic changes you're doing during the music, or they can't hear the nuances of your tone, those things are things that would typically help you in an audition. But if your microphone isn't picking those things up, suddenly having the best saxophone in the world means very little, because your recording is going to sound like you're playing on like a Bundy 2 or something that you might see in a middle school program somewhere. And the same thing is true for all instruments. If we're using these really low quality microphones, they're going to create low quality sound. And we're all up and coming, essentially professional musicians or professional music teachers. And so we don't want to present ourselves in that way. So when we're doing auditions or when we're in lessons or when we're in any of these situations, when we're in Zoom calls like this, we want people to be able to clearly hear us and hear what we're doing. And so, especially for musicians, I think it's critical that we have some level of personal audio equipment and a means to record that and share that with people. Does that kind of answer your question, Dr. Spohler?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ben. Keep going forward. This is great.
Sure. And so what I want to start with first is I want to show you all what I use personally. And you will tell as I go on, I do not recommend what I am using for you guys. The stuff I use is stuff that I've accumulated over years and years and years of doing professional, semi-professional live sound work. And it's not necessarily the best you can do for the amount of money I have invested, if that makes sense. So to start with, I do not use a USB microphone. I use an actual professional stage microphone that you would see at any live concert, and it's this one. This is made by a company called Shure. They are an American microphone manufacturer, and if I'm being honest, they're the only good American microphone manufacturer that I've encountered so far. And they make a couple really, really nice microphones, and this is one of them. This, just if you're kind of geeky about this stuff like me, this is the Shure SM57, and it is a dynamic instrument microphone. So we use these for miking acoustic guitars. We use these for miking bass guitars, like acoustic bass guitars, upright bass guitars. No, I guess it would just be an upright bass, not a bass guitar at that point. We use these for miking guitar amplifiers. We use these for miking drum kits. This is like a workhorse microphone in the pro audio world. And it goes for about $100. It comes with a little baggie, like the one I showed you. I just dropped it. It comes with a little baggie to store it in. It comes with a microphone clip, and sometimes they even come with microphone cables that are pretty nice. But the reason I use this one is because I already had it. And the best thing to use is what you already have, right? And so I like these. These are great for saxophones, even on stage. I wouldn't be afraid to mic a saxophone on a live performance with one of these. But that begs the question. So this is a dynamic microphone, and it says it right there on the side. I don't know if you can see that or not. But there's another type of microphone too. And Dr. Cipolla, you've recommended, and the emails that have gone out have recommended that we have a condenser microphone, right? And so what is a condenser microphone versus a dynamic microphone? And that's a very good question. A dynamic microphone is passive. This microphone does not require electricity to work. When you speak into it or you play your instrument into it, it converts those sound waves into electromagnetic fluctuations that are then transferred via the cable to whatever device you're using to capture it. Whereas, and in general, dynamic microphones have relatively small diaphragms. So the diaphragm is the part of the mic that collects your sound. It's the part that vibrates. They have relatively small diaphragms. And of course, much larger than a cell phone. But a condenser microphone, on the other hand, actually requires additional electricity. So there's this thing that you will encounter with a condenser microphone called phantom power. And basically what it is, it's 48 volts of electricity that you are required to send to the microphone in order for it to operate. So the electricity allows the microphone to operate and transmit its signal, because those microphones have much larger diaphragms, sometimes even as big as like a large dollar coin or something. And so those microphones, the benefit to them is they're much more sensitive. So whenever you're using it for a recording situation, like in a studio or on a call like this for a lesson or for an audition or for just general talking like what we're doing here, a condenser microphone is going to provide the highest level of detail and the closest to realistic reproduction of your voice or tone on your instrument. A dynamic microphone, on the other hand, is going to be able to handle much louder volumes. So if you're really close to your microphone, or if you're singing really, really loud, a dynamic microphone is going to be able to handle those volumes better because they're not as sensitive. The drawback is they don't reproduce at the same level of detail your tone as a condenser microphone would. And so then you might ask yourself, well, Ben, why do you use a dynamic microphone instead of a condenser microphone? And the answer is kind of simple for me. I have a number of condenser microphones, but all my condenser microphones are really, really cheap ones. They're not very high quality, and I wouldn't recommend purchasing them. Whereas I would absolutely recommend one of these to anybody looking for a dynamic mic. And so I use this one because I know for a fact that the quality on a good dynamic microphone, such as this one, is better than the audio quality on a cheap condenser like the other ones I own. But again, like I told you earlier, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the stuff that I use. It's just what I have. And so I'm happy to show it to you, and then I'm happy to make actual practical recommendations. So that's a microphone. So we've gone over the difference between a dynamic and a condenser microphone, and why I use a dynamic, why I use this specific dynamic, and why I love this. This is one of my favorite microphones in the world. I love these things. They're great. They get used everywhere. But a microphone's great. But if you have a real stage microphone, such as this one, that does not have a USB port on the bottom, you're going to need an interface to connect it from your microphone to your laptop or your cell phone or your iPad or whatever it is. And there's a number of different interfaces out there. I'm going to recommend one later among my other recommendations. Dr. Cipolla, I know, uses a Zoom recorder as an interface for his lessons, and it looks like he might pick that up and show it to you. Yeah, those Zoom recorders make very, very nice interfaces. But for what we're looking at, they might be a little bit pricier than what a college student might be willing to spend. So we'll get to that stuff. The interface I use is this one. It's kind of silly looking. It is, I don't even know who made it, if I'm being honest. I bought this on Amazon a few years back for like $45. I did not pay much for it at all. And I bought it so that I could connect a microphone to my laptop for making videos. It is pretty okay. It's not spectacular, but it's not bad. I can connect my microphone into the top here, and then it has a USB port out the bottom as well as a headphone jack. So I can control my headphone volume here. I can control my microphone volume here. It has a switch for 48 volt phantom power that we talked about in case you're using a condenser mic. So this little guy for $45 has been pretty handy for me. And it's great because it fits in the bag with my microphone, which I really like. And so we have the interface. This connects from our microphone to our computer. But what's cool, and we'll get into this here more now, is USB microphones. USB microphones get rid of the need for an expensive interface. This is a $45 one, like I said, not super expensive, but if you get into nicer ones, you're going to pay upwards of $100 or $200. So that your price gets really high at that point, and we don't necessarily want that. So USB microphones. USB microphones have the interface built into them. And so instead of having to plug a microphone into an interface like this, and then plug the interface into your computer, you can just plug the microphone directly into the computer and save yourself tons of hassle, save a little bit of money because you don't have to buy this, and then still get really good audio quality. And so there are lots of great options out there for USB microphones. I don't own any because I just use this stuff, but I've been looking at some, and I'm going to share my screen with you because I want to show you a really good example of one. And this is actually going to be my first recommendation. The absolute, if you are trying to save every penny you can because you're in college and you don't have a meal plan, but Chick-fil-A still looks really, really good, this is the one I'm going to recommend for you. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. We'll share this link here. So this is the Amazon Basics desktop mini condenser microphone with a tripod. This guy, let me tell you, is excellent. When I was preparing for this Zoom call, I actually did some research about this particular microphone because for $43, that's a really good price. I mean, if we think about that, that's really not bad. That's less than probably all of the textbooks that we had to buy this semester. That's cheaper than the school supplies. I mean, that's really reasonable for what we're doing. It's much cheaper than, say, a mouthpiece or a ligature. I mean, it's like a box of reeds. So why not? So for $43, I did some research on this. You get unbeatable audio quality for its price. I've seen reviews of this thing where people are just absolutely blown away by how good it sounds. They use this microphone for voice, like what we're doing now. They use this microphone for miking acoustic instruments like a guitar or a saxophone or a clarinet or a double bass or whatever it is you play. And I've seen them use this microphone to mic electric guitar cabinets. And it's incredible for $43. And so with this microphone, all you do is you plug it into your laptop, and then your laptop will recognize it, your laptop will connect to it, and then you're good to go. I mean, that's all there is to it. It doesn't get much more simple than a USB microphone like this. So if nothing else looks good to you in this video, I cannot recommend enough purchasing at least a microphone like this one. This guy is great. But let's say you want something a little bit nicer and you're willing to spend a little bit more money. And I will show you now the microphone that I personally would purchase. This is the one that if I didn't have any of the equipment I have right now, I would go buy this thing tomorrow. This is the Blue Microphone Yeti. So if you watch a lot of YouTube videos or podcasts, you've probably recognized this guy. This one is used a lot, like I said, for podcasting or making YouTube videos, or even for conference calls like this. So for $150, you get a significant, and I can't emphasize that enough, a significant improvement in audio quality from that Amazon one. You get options for plugging in your headphones and having volume control for your headphones directly on the microphone. You get that mute control. You also get here on the back, let's find a picture of the back. Here on the back, you have control for the volume of the microphone itself, as well as for, let's see if I can, there we go, as well as for the polar pattern. So polar pattern, just briefly, is basically where the microphone gets sound from. So most microphones like this one have a cardioid pattern. It's heart-shaped, it comes out of the mic, and it comes forward like this, and then it swoops back up to the mic. So this one has a cardioid pickup pattern, like this microphone. It has an omnidirectional pickup pattern, so it'll pick up sound all the way around the mic. And then it has a tight figure eight pattern like this, and then it has a bigger figure eight pattern like this. So for instance, if you're in a large concert hall doing an audition recording and you want to hear the concert hall, you could pick one of these other settings to get more of the natural reverberation from the room. Or if you're just in a practice room, you can use a cardioid pickup pattern for really clean audio for a lesson or a simple recording. But one of the things I love about both this microphone and the one from Amazon is for the price, they come with the microphone itself. It comes with all the cabling you need to hook it up to your laptop. It comes with the software you need to get it working, but it also comes with a stand. So you see this one has a bass attached. It's short, but it would sit on top of a piano in a practice room and be more than sufficient. The one here from Amazon also comes with a simple stand for sitting it on a table or a piano. But then also, the last option I would recommend to you, and this is kind of more in the, I want really good audio quality and I want room to upgrade. So let's say you're somebody like me and you're a senior in the program, or maybe you're a junior in the program and you're getting ready to start thinking about graduating. And you're thinking that, wow, this personal audio equipment stuff sounds really nice, but I would like to have a few more options with it. Then these look like they only hook up to my computer. And you'd be right. And so that's where I recommend this next set. And so this is a Focusrite Scarlett interface. So this device here for $110 does exactly what this device here does, but it does it a lot better. So this here will have a much nicer tone than this guy, which has terrible tone. It has control for your headphones. It has control for your microphone gain, and it connects directly to your computer. And it's in this nice clean package that sits right on top of your desk or wherever you take it. So then you pair this guy with a pretty nice condenser microphone. Oh, did I have two of these pulled up? Oh, let's see here. Okay, we're gonna have to pull this one up real quick. Give me 1 second. Here it is. So you can pair a really nice interface such as the Scarlett with a condenser microphone such as this Audio-Technica 2020. This is an industry standard microphone. I see these all over the place for miking guitar cabinets, vocalists in the recording studios, recording instruments on live stages, everything. This is an excellent option. You pair a guy like this with a nice interface, and then just whatever stand you can get your hands on. I have a little short desktop stand here for $20, and you have room to improve. And I think that is worth its weight in gold in and of itself. So 2 years down the road, when you decide you would like for your recordings to be a little bit better, I need to switch tabs. When you decide you want your recordings to be a little bit better, maybe you sell this Audio-Technica mic and buy one that's a little bit nicer. Spend a little bit more money on it, and then you've upgraded without having to replace every single part of your setup. So something like this is great for somebody who knows they're going to be doing a lot of recording. You're going to be recording lots of auditions maybe, if you're going looking for a master's program, or even if you just want to use it for other stuff, for school projects, for writing songs with your friends, for, I don't know, even just goofing off. Having a system like this gives you a lot of flexibility. Of course, you pay for that flexibility. It is quite a bit more expensive than the other options, and it is more equipment to lug around. But the good thing is, again, you have that freedom to upgrade, and you have lots of freedom with what you're using it for. So those are kind of my recommendations. So I've named them. This is the all-out budget, but you're getting a good product. This is the absolute best value. This is what I would get today if I could. And then this is the highest quality, but you pay for it, but you have room to upgrade. And so given that, that has been about 30 minutes. And I would just love to hear from you guys. Do you all have any questions? Do you have any thoughts about those recommendations or questions about what they can do? Or even any questions about the equipment I'm using? You can shoot them in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
So I bought a Blue Yeti mic and I'm having trouble getting any good sound out of it. I play trumpet, and I think I'm just overloading it. What can I do to not overload it?
Okay. So with the Blue Yeti microphone, you're finding you're overloading it and you're concerned about getting that overload down. So what I would recommend is turn that gain knob down, and maybe you've already tried that, but get the gain knob. Have you?
Yeah, I have it all the way down.
You have the gain knob all the way down and it's still too loud. Are you playing directly into the microphone?
Yeah, I had it about 6 or 7 feet away.
6 or 7 feet away. So something that could be the issue is, are you doing it on Zoom calls?
No, this was when I was trying to record my audition for Symphonic Band.
Okay. So in recording your audition for Symphonic Band, your recording was too loud and it was overloading the microphone,
Yeah, it was really distorted.
really distorted. What you might consider doing, and I've seen people do this, is take the microphone and get it out of your line of path. So maybe you're playing in one direction and the microphone is off to the side a little bit. So it's still going to pick up your sound, but hopefully it'll decrease that overload possibility. Some other possible things to try. What software are you recording your audio with? Or are you just using a video camera?
I don't remember. I just downloaded the first thing I could find. It was Logitech something.
Logitech something. Okay. That it could be something to do with that. There's some great softwares out there. I'm known to use a program called Audacity for recording. It's a free program that's perfect for recording just audio. There's also good programs from a company called Avid. They make recording software that the professionals use. It's Pro Tools, and they have a free version for everybody. It's Pro Tools First, and I highly recommend it. That could be part of the issue too. If the Logitech software isn't designed to handle loud volumes coming into your computer, it could be coming from there. There's a number of things. I can get you my contact information and we can talk more about it if you would like to. But
Ben, I might just jump in with a quick little, maybe a thought that the concept of recording onto a specific audio device, the receiving device is an audio designed device, versus recording and having to convert it to a computer, to a digital. So on the recording device, like when I would make a recording onto like a Zoom device like this, I'm recording onto actually a little SD card like you have in a camera. So Ben, maybe you want to make the distinction that possibly that there is a difference between the audio recording type of receiving devices and the computer devices, or talk about that at least.
Sure, there is a distinction between those two things. Obviously, the Zoom is a specialized product designed for capturing audio and putting it on an SD card, whereas a computer is going to be like a much more complicated version of a Zoom. But with good software and with a computer that is set up correctly to handle the microphone you're using, there shouldn't be any sort of issue. We should be able to work through a situation where the microphone is overloading. And so that's why I would recommend a good piece of software such as Audacity or Pro Tools First to capture audio in a way that is clean. And then you can also edit that audio if it's coming in too loud, like you were explaining.
Okay. And what software would you recommend using for audio and video recording?
For audio and video recording, that's a little trickier. There's not a lot of software out there that does both really well. And so generally what I recommend for people is to record your audio and then record your video at the same time and then put those together in a video editing software. But if you don't have that ability, and I totally understand, that adds potential hours of work onto it. Can I ask, do you use a MacBook or a PC?
PC.
PC. There is a piece of software installed on your PC called, if I can find it, it's just your camera app. And I use the camera app whenever I do my recordings, and I connect my microphone stuff to it, and it picks up that as my microphone, and it works pretty well.
Okay.
So you might give that a shot as opposed to the Logitech software. It might also be worth checking your computer settings and see how loud you have the microphone volume set inside of your settings. And that's specific to Mac. So I won't show you how to do that. But um, yeah, just a couple of things to try. I like that camera software pretty well myself.
Okay. Thank you.
I would
Well,
just jump in also with what, just to kind of support something that Ben said very early on. Ben likes this stuff. He
yeah,
loves this stuff. And if I can impress on everyone that you may not have the immense passion that Ben does for this, that he's developed over the years of him using this and through a lot of trial and error and experimentation of different types of devices and et cetera. But we're in a time now that is not going to go away in terms of us needing to utilize technologies like this. So we want to start initially with some sort of desire that if we put some time in, honest effort into this, we can make lots of what we do result in a much, much better result. It could be, like Ben said, an audition video. It takes essentially the desire to understand that the impact that you're putting out there, that you're when you create this, the impact is going to be basically a sonic impact a lot. The visual is important, certainly, but we're dealing in sound. Certainly in lessons, you're going to have a richer, deeper lesson experience if if you have some understanding of this. I will say that you all are very fortunate in your generation to have sort of a good feel for things. You get into a device, and I'll ask you in a lesson, can you try an audio settings? And I don't really have to give you too much instruction beyond that, and all of a sudden you just kind of navigate through and figure stuff out. That's fantastic. So that desire, though, if you're not so interested in tech stuff, of course, you don't have to be as passionate as Ben is, but do take some interest in all this because it has a big effect on all of us.
sure. And Jacob, I don't know if you can see there in the comics, but Steven has a recommendation that they use, and that might be worth giving a try. I've never used the Acapella app, but that might be a good route to take potentially. I'll open it up for another question. Anybody else got anything?
Early on, you mentioned a program called Clear something that you use in your lessons, I think. What was the name of that?
So I'll let Dr. Zapola actually handle that one because it's called CleanFeed, and we use
Clean.
it in the saxophone clarinet studio, and it's very, very nice.
Yeah, so to make a distinction between audio and video, the Zoom does both. And so the Zoom call has the sound and the video integrated into one button. You press, you connect to the meeting, and now you're hearing things and seeing things. And the clean feed is only audio, absolutely only audio. And what it's essentially doing is boosting the quality of the audio a lot by, and I don't know much more technically than this, but shortening the amount of time that one party emits the sound and the other party receives the sound. And in a Zoom call, say if the person makes a sound on this side and they receive it on this side, in a clean feed call, it's closer. So there's just less delay. There still is some delay, but the quality overall is much better. Ben was referring to different types of microphones accepting more sound, and in a clean feed call in general, you're not going to get those dropouts that where something is too loud, or you have a tuba that's too low, or a piccolo that's too high, and all of a sudden it just silences. So the only problem I have experienced with the clean feed is that you cannot. You'd have to do what Ben referred to earlier. If you want to actually save recordings of lessons or performances or lectures like this, you would have to do both, record a clean feed, record some sort of video call, which would be like a Zoom or a Skype call or a FaceTime or something, and then later put the two together. Clean feed is free. It only works on Google Chrome. So our routine on lessons is that we connect on Zoom, and then I send the student a clean feed link, and they log in with that. Unfortunately, you need to use headphones with clean feed. Otherwise, they create an echo feedback. And then once we're logged in on clean feed, we mute the Zoom call, and we're able to have a much more sonically pleasing lesson. This week, I started yesterday actually doing only Zoom to experiment because they came out with an update on their software Zoom that seems to be slightly better than it's in the past. But I'm going to work with each student one-on-one next week to see if you all want to keep using the clean feed. So, Brian, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Super.
Yeah, CleanFeed is great. I love using it. It really does help in the Zoom calls, especially for lessons. And that brings up a pretty good point, Dr. Sapola, too. I'm not going to dig into this too much, but it is worth having a pretty good set of headphones. So with headphones, I always recommend whatever works for you, but look into that. If you're using like your iPhone's earbuds or something, maybe AirPods are okay. But if you're using like the ones that come with the phone, you might look into getting a decent set of headphones for $20, $30, $40, $50 or something.
Ben, you're making some fantastic recommendations. It's again, like Ben is emphasizing that Ben has so nicely presented all these ranges of prices. This is not a commercial to sell you things, but it really is a commercial actually to say that all of this stuff matters, and not just for this pandemic period, but later. A lot of this will stick in education and the way we convey our what we do in education and music particularly, not even just music education, but any kind of communication regarding music. We're going to be on the computers a lot. Zoom will continue to develop. There'll be competitors of Zoom. So headphones are critical, important. I will say also that computers are important. So if you have a 7th grade computer or a computer you had from 8th grade or freshman in high school, and now you're a junior in college or something, it's probably too old at that point. And as much as you want it to last longer, these things, unfortunately, they do outdate or they get outdated. So.
Thank you,
Ben,
Dr. Sapola.
Yes, sir, Ben.
Any more questions? Keep them coming.
I could ask a question to everybody, and maybe this is a general question, so we'll use Ben's idea of getting those thumbs up and the reactions in the bottom. How did you like this talk today? Okay. And so that's all pretty overwhelmingly positive. So I guess the next question would be, do you think that you would make a change? And again, I'm not selling anything, but at some point, would you continue to educate yourself or want to educate yourself so that you're understanding that sound and the quality of sound and how you present yourself is actually of some importance? So would you feel that this is going to leave an impact on you and you'll use some of this information at some point in the future? Super, super. So I guess we can wrap up a little bit with any thoughts that Ben might have or any questions that anyone else has. Oftentimes in these things, people are not even knowing what to ask, but then you come up with some questions later on. So let's open it up one more time and see if we can get, let me see if we had, oh, there's Ben in the middle. Okay. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, I have 2 questions for Ben.
Okay.
The first one I have to ask what you're using for audio, and the second one is if you've ever used Ableton as a recording software. The interface seems pretty intuitive to me. So,
Okay, sure. So when you ask what I'm using for audio, do you mean right now?
yeah, right now. And just in general, really. I know you answered earlier a little bit, but yeah.
Sure. So I'm kind of embarrassed. Right now, I'm actually not using any nice audio equipment at all. This is my computer's microphone, which works okay for voice, but it does not work well for saxophone. That's why. But the reason I'm not using any equipment is because I wanted to be able to hold it up and show it to you guys. So right now I'm using nothing, but typically for my lessons, I use this SM57. I use this cheap Amazon interface. And then I hook it all together with just a generic XLR cable, which is the cabling we use for microphones. And that's it. It works. And I can control mic gain and everything here on the unit. It's pretty simple. But sometimes I will break out a condenser microphone if I want to have a little bit higher audio quality. And so I just have some of those laying around, but I don't make any recommendations on condensers outside of that AT2020 because they get very, very expensive. And as far as Ableton is concerned, I have personally never used Ableton. I know a lot of people who really like it. And if I understand correctly, I think Ableton is either free or they do free licenses for students, or maybe it's a free trial that you can just keep clicking the I'm still testing it button and they'll just keep letting you use it for free. So I've heard lots of great things about Ableton, but I've personally never used it. For my personal recordings, I use Pro Tools.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome, thanks. Anyone else, other questions?
Are music technology classes offered here at WKU? I just transferred and know nothing. Or did you really learn all of this on your own?
So as far as I know, we do not offer music technology classes. I've never seen one. I would have loved to have taken it if we did. But a lot of the stuff that I learned is a culmination of different things. I've been doing audio in the live world, so live music, for golly, going on probably about 10 years now. And I just pick up a lot from that. I learn a lot doing work at the church. Like I said early on in this talk, I do work for Living Hope Baptist Church and I do audio there. And then also just stuff like the recording side of things and recording microphones and that stuff. A lot of that I picked up because I transferred to WKU as well. And when I was at Morehead State University for a couple of years, I actually took a class that was a studio production class. And I learned a lot about the recording side of things there.
That's
But
where I
that-
transferred from.
Oh, really? Awesome. Yeah, so the Center for Traditional Music in Kentucky over there at MSU, Morehead State, has a really nice recording studio, and they teach classes on how to use Pro Tools and everything that, some of the upper level stuff that we don't necessarily need to get into right here. But yeah, so to answer your question, no, we don't have classes for that, I don't think. And I've just been learning about it for a long time. And it's something I get excited about, so I like to learn more.
Thank you.
I could just give you a quick response also to kind of fill in what Ben is saying, Brian. There used to be a music tech class here. That was a general overview class, touched on a lot of technology topics, nothing too in depth, but just to give you an overview of basic software programs out there. And the reason that program existed was because our program is accredited by the National Association of Schools of Music, and they had done an accreditation visit, I want to say about 10 or it could be 20 years ago, I don't remember, where they said you need to emphasize technology some more. So we had a course for a period of time, and then on another visit they said, well, we decided we could integrate some of that information into some other courses and not offer a separate course. And the reason for that integration was to keep students on track to graduate in 4 years rather than adding more credits to their degree of required courses to keep the program accredited. We just integrated some of those topics into other courses so the students won't have to sign up for further courses. Longer explanation.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And thank you, Dr. Spola.
Yes, sir. I'll again emphasize, just trying to make this simple, Ben has an interest in this. He has a passion for this. And I would say for any of us, start with some of that passion, develop some of that passion a little bit, an interest in it. Brian, maybe just to kind of follow up on your question, if one is starting from the grassroots basic level of not knowing much at all, start maybe with a project that is relevant to you. I want to have a good sound in my lesson. Maybe just one thing. And so start with a decent computer device, maybe like Ben said, a USB microphone, even an entry level, and go with that and start to pay attention to that. And from that point, you'll grow out in with just developing some more knowledge. Move the microphone out more, put it closer. You'll start to kind of find your way, just like you all are very good at working through cell phone programs and stuff without an instruction manual. So any other questions before we wrap up? Ben, you're fantastic, and this was just a fantastic presentation. So I'm going to again give you a reaction of amazing hand claps here and clapping for you. And thanks again so much for taking the time. So well organized, so well presented, very clear, engaging presentation. And we're just so fortunate that you took some time out to do that for us. So thank you again, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, for having me, and for everybody who's here. It was good to get to talk to you guys and tell you about some of this stuff. So hopefully it's helpful.
Fantastic. All right, you all have a great day, and we'll sign off now. I'll